Okay, we're started.
Yeah, but let me just introduce everything and I'll turn it over to you in a second, Anne. Hi everyone, this is Mary Magnuson and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on broadband and education in the time of coronavirus. This is the first in a series of webinars the Foundation is offering for anyone with an interest in using technology to improve community while practicing physical distancing. So we're going to get started. Again, my name is Mary Magnuson. I work at Blandin Foundation and I administer the Blandin Community Broadband Program. Joining me today is today's moderator, Ann Tracy of Tracy Information Services, who helps us to maintain the Blandin on Broadband blog. And I'm going to let Ann introduce our speakers today. So take it away, Ann.
Great, thank you. And thanks for everyone for showing up. This is fantastic. As Mary said, we will have the webinar live now until 11 o'clock, and then I'll be posting it later today. It's kind of amazing how everybody's plans have changed in the last 2 weeks. I was just saying, I just had to warn my student who is distancing in the back room, don't come into the dining room. You know, we're all learning new things, and that's kind of the focus today is broadband and education in the time of coronavirus. How can we make this go smoothly? I don't think any of us know how long it's going to go on for, but I think we know tools that we can use to make it go smoother. Some of that, and we have different folks talking about different aspects of this, is making sure that you have a device at home. And that's why I'm delighted to have Mary and Tina from PCs for People, and we'll have them talk a little bit about getting devices to the people who need them. Then it's a matter of getting the resources that you need once you're online and getting online in public places. I'm excited. We've got Jen Nelson from the State Librarian who's going to talk a little bit about what the libraries are doing. Very said, my background is I do the Blandin on Broadband blog. At one time, I put my glasses down and I could put my hair up. I was a reference librarian for many years. I have taught school. I've taught everything from kindergarten, actually taught everything from preschool to graduate school. So this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm excited to have Jen because while I know the world of libraries has changed dramatically in this era of distancing, there are still a ton of resources to be had. Then we've got Steve Georgie from RAMS. We were talking before we went on air. He has been interviewed by nearly every publication in Minnesota at this point, which is fantastic as he knows what's happening on the front lines with the municipalities and with the schools. Steve is also a member of the Broadband Task Force and a member in good standing at the Minnesota Broadband Coalition. So I'll give everybody some time to say their piece. If you have any questions, I think the easiest way at this point is to use the chat feature in Zoom, post a question. There aren't so many of us that if you feel like you're not getting seen, you can also shout out. And if it turns into a melee, we'll just kind of change the rules and sort of ask questions at the end. But I'm excited to start here with Mary and Tina. I know we can see Mary and talking about PCs for People. And but Mary and we're not as distant as some of you because we live in the same zip code. We are way more than 6 feet apart. And you've been working at PCs for People for a while now. We've been working, Blandin Foundation has been working with PCs for People for 10 years or more. So, but yeah, your game has changed. You're looking at a fire hose of business these days.
Yes, absolutely. And so I know Tina's on as well. I think her video, or I don't even know if her mic is working, but Tina, if you can chat, feel free to jump in where you can. But yeah, so as Ann said, we've been working with the Blandin Foundation for quite a while now, being able to provide desktop devices for primarily people in rural Minnesota, which is really great. Our operations are now in 3 states and soon to be 4, which is super exciting. So we also have offices in Denver and Cleveland, along with our St. Paul location. With that, we also have an online store, which has come to be super useful at this time. But we also understand that you need a device and internet in order to go online to shop. So it's kind of an issue we're running into, but I just want to kind of present what we have to offer and ways that we can connect if you are needing computer devices for people in your community. Every partnership we have is very unique to fit the needs of the people you're serving. So I'm just going to kind of give a blanketed overview of kind of how that looks. And then, you know, if you wanted to follow up with me personally after, we can discuss ways that, you know, this could work for you. So we offer desktop computers and laptops. With everything that is going on, our laptop supply is going quickly. So we're working really hard to make sure we have suppliers for our laptops. So all of our devices are donated from different businesses and corporations or government agencies that are recycling their devices with us, and then we're able to refurbish those devices with Windows 10, and we have quite a few different software programs loaded on there to fight against viruses, you know, help with word processing, that sort of stuff, and we can customize the specs for what you're wanting as well. So we can definitely customize the devices. So yeah, as I was saying, right now we're a little low on stock for laptops, but we do have quite a few desktops ready to go. So, you know, we're hoping to have more laptops in stock soon, but that's just kind of where we're at, like right at this moment. If an organization wants to buy in bulk, that's an option. Typically, we can give a little bit of a discount to a bulk order versus if an individual were to buy on their own. So our desktops typically start around $30 and go up from there. And then our laptops typically start at around like $75 to $100 and go up from there. So that really depends on like the age of the device, the specs that are in it, and if you wanted to add on anything. So when somebody receives a device, it is used, but it is newly refurbished. So when they turn on the device, it's like they're setting up a brand new computer, which is nice. So again, if you wanted to buy in bulk, we could invoice the nonprofit, the school, the institution, you know, whatever, directly, and then you could kind of distribute those computers how you'd like. You just need to be a tax exempt organization. Or tribal, or we can, and with that we can ship it, or right now we could deliver it too. So we have a delivery going up to Grand Rapids actually next week. And so right now our truck is going, it is a little slower right now just because of businesses being closed and our pickups aren't going as often. So we can definitely discuss the delivery option as well. And we're also removing the eligibility barrier right now as much as we can, because essentially to be eligible, you need to be on some form of government assistance and fall under income guidelines. But we're really wanting to open that up to any student essentially who's moving to distance learning, because every student needs to have a device at home in order to finish out their education this year. And also it's just turning into that, you know, basic need of having to be connected or needing to be connected. So if a student or family shows an email saying that they're, well, actually now that that's changed since yesterday, because every school is closed now till the 4th. So yeah, so any student can receive a device. Gosh, things are just like changing by the hour, aren't they? So yeah, and also if somebody receives a service through the nonprofit or the school, they're automatically eligible because we do sell directly to nonprofits as well. So, but if you know just of like one person who needs a device, you can just refer them to us as well. So if you're not needing to do like a bulk order, you could direct them to our online store, which is findpcs.com, and I can send all this information out after as well. Again, it's just findpcs.com. We could also look at doing something like a curbside pickup. So if you do have quite a few students that are needing a device, we could do a prepayment, and then we could, you know, bring our truck in and distribute like curbside style too. So people could drive up and we just hand them their device. They don't even need to get out of their car. So we can definitely be flexible with how we get devices into your community. Again, it's just a matter of, you know, every community is unique and we want to be able to cater to your needs. So Yeah, Tina, am I missing anything that you think? Oh, I do want to touch on too. We do have mobile hotspots for internet. Our supplier, Sprint, is, I mean, they're running out nationwide. So we do offer that. It just know that we are running extremely, extremely low. We have a waiting list going for bulk orders right now, but I think individuals, you know, if there's one or two, they could probably still get that. Yeah. Tina, do you have anything you want to add? If your mic's working, I don't know. Okay. Well, yeah, and every device also comes with a 1-year warranty. So I want to throw that out as well. So if anything does happen to the device, we can make sure to get that repaired or replaced within the year as well, which is huge. And we also offer repairs. I know a lot of people aren't right here in St. Paul, but we are able to ship devices, and we do have a great customer service team that can, you know, kind of troubleshoot over the phone if need be, or, you know, the support is there for people. So they're not just given a device and say good luck. It's just, we want to make sure that they know how to use it and use it properly and know how to troubleshoot if anything does happen to it too. So we offer robust support as well. So, and I'm not sure how long you want me to go for. Is that that timing okay?
Until you run out of information. No, there's, you know, you've got a couple minutes. I always, I love to hear so many of the heartwarming stories from PCs for People. And I know right now you're out with the folks delivering meals for schools.
Yeah. Yeah. Our Ohio team, actually, they're, the meals that are being served through like the bus stops, they're actually going out with them right now. Because they had some events set up at schools, and so everyone's already prepaid, and so they're just able to hand out those computers as they're picking up food, which is really great. We had an event yesterday that was supposed to be in Albert Lee, and so our driver ended up just bringing them down by himself, so we weren't sitting in the truck together. But so that worked out well, because the two partners in Albert Lee were able to, you know, they have a close relationship with all the people getting a computer. So they were able to get them to prepay, and just, they're taking their, like, setting up certain times to come get their devices. So it's not a big group of people all at once. But yeah, the heartwarming stories it's the best part. One of our colleagues in our Ohio location, again, when their state went on shelter in place, I want to say almost a week ago now. They're about a week ahead of us. And one of the students, he was 18 and was living on his own in his apartment and didn't have a computer or internet. So the executive director in that location went out to his apartment when he's supposed to be at home, but he hooked up everything for him. And all he had on the floor was a sleeping bag and some canned food. And it's like, to be able to provide somebody something to stay connected to friends when you don't, you know, have much family, it's really, it's, you know, it's life-changing and what these services can do. And he's able to stay caught up with school now and not fall further behind. So it's those stories that, you know, really show you that we're making a huge difference, you know, just by staying connected. So yeah.
Mary?
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat box. Is the service just for school age students?
Is there? No, we, I feel like right now, just that's where the focus primarily is, but we're opening up the eligibility for students. We're just being more flexible with it because of this, you know, people moving to distance learning. But no, our services are available for everyone. Right now also is a huge time for, you know, older adults that might have, you know, underlying health conditions that can't leave the house or can't see family. And so staying connected is a huge thing for them too. So no, it's not just for school age students, but the eligibility is a little bit more flexible for that right now, if that makes sense.
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah.
And this is now because I have 3 kids, I always think, is it one computer per student or one computer per household?
You can actually, a household can get up to 5 computers. So so 5 computers within a year, I want to say. I can double check that though. But, and also too, each computer has an identification code. So we'll link that directly to their profile in our CRM. So if any issues do come up, we're able to see that, you know, they received this computer. Like with past Blandin partnerships, we're able to see like they got this from a Blandin event, and you know, we're able to see that they're still within that 1 year warranty if anything does happen. So we'll just want to make sure that all the computers get linked directly to the like household account.
Nice.
Bernadine is asking, is PCs for People partnering directly with school districts?
With school districts, not specifically, more so with just specific schools. So we're working with quite a few charter schools. I know in Colorado, they're working specifically with the Denver School District. We're starting conversations with like, you know, just various connections in like St. Paul Public Schools, some of the family liaison roles there. And then also with the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, they're connecting us with, you know, maybe people who will need computers, but there's no direct school districts. We're primarily working, like, for example, Kutaska Community Action, we're working with them and they're supplying computers for, you know, Itasca Public Schools. So yeah, that answers your question.
I can just jump in, and I talked to the Deer River superintendent, and he mentioned specifically that they were reaching out because they did not have one-on-one devices for all their students. So they're working with Kuchai tasks for PC for Peoples. And
okay,
so
great.
it's a great resource for these school districts in this urgent time. So.
And then Mary, will we be able to, could I send out my information to everyone if they wanted to contact me directly? Or should I put it in the chat box, like my email and phone?
Mary Magnuson, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd maybe put it in the chat box for now. I did add that link to findpcs.com for you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I can download a list of people and send them anything, but they can also check the Blandin on Broadband blog.
Yeah, I will add all that information on the blog. And for all of the speakers or even anyone listening, if you send me information, I can share that later today when I post this on the Broadband blog.
Great.
Good. Well, this feels like a natural, unless you had something else.
Nope, I was gonna say that's all I have. Thank you.
Great minds. Because it seemed like a natural time kind of to shift to libraries. So we've got Jen Nelson, state librarian, and as I said, I know aside from hospitality, I don't know a service that has changed more dramatically in the last 2 weeks than libraries. So I'm excited to hear about what's going on.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Mary Magnuson, I am going to try and call up slides by sharing my screen, and I hope it works.
Yeah, so you hit share and then you just, you have to click the slides and hit share again.
Hit share again.
There you go.
Okay. They're showing up. Good.
Yes.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to be here. I work at the Department of Education, and Mary had asked if I talk a little bit about libraries in this kind of coronavirus time. And so I have just a few slides about some resources that are available, but I have been in pretty close contact with our libraries. We have 355 public library locations in the state. At this point in time, about 325 of them are closed to walk-in traffic. So most are doing some sort of curbside, no contact delivery, and they're all doing online services. Some are doing virtual story times. Some are making available online registration for library cards to make it easier to get access to ebooks and online resources and that sort of thing. with the department, just real quickly, we really look when we do presentations to really talk about what matters. And for us, what's mattering in this particular instance is prioritizing equity. We really want to make sure that kids have what they need to be successful in this distance learning environment, and to improve the conditions for learning, of course, and then to give kids options. You know, we're aware that distance learning is not specific to online learning, although that's a large part of it is probably going to be that. But we really have been intentional about talking about distance learning to address the equity issue and make sure that all kids have access to things. So public libraries today, while doors may be closed, their online services are open, and many of them are working to extend their Wi-Fi range out into parking lots and nearby locations. They were given approval from the FCC to do that through the E-rate program. So we're hoping at this point, I talked to several libraries yesterday, and all of them are extended into the parking lot for their Wi-Fi. So if you're in a smaller community, a drive-by, your location might show that you have some access there where you may not have it elsewhere in the community available. In terms of distance learning, there are a number of resources that libraries provide online, and one of the messages I was asked to share is that it differs across the state. If you're in the metropolitan area, you're going to have one set of resources available to you. If you're up in Northwest Minnesota, you're going to have another set. So what I'm focusing on in this particular conversation is what's common and available across the state, excuse me. And all of these are authenticated by geolocation, so you can just type in the URL and get immediate access to the ELibrary of Minnesota. The ELibrary of Minnesota has several different components. It's actually operated by an organization called Minitex, which is a collaborative partnership between the University of Minnesota and the Department of Education. And the ELibrary allows access to a number of different kinds of resources. There are a total of about 50 available here for all ages. So little less on the preschool area, but definitely in the K-12 arena, as well as higher education, as well as adult learners. One of the things I'll make note of, this is the current homepage. There's a note that says Minitex temporary access databases will be available until June 2020. This project is out for RFP now, and you can get access to some really interesting resources that usually aren't available online or remotely, including Ancestry and Heritage Quest, which are genealogy databases, which are something that I know a lot of people enjoy looking up. So those are available. They also have available a chat reference service that's open 24/7. So it's called Ask a Librarian, and this is on that homepage of the ELibrary Minnesota. And in it, you can just type in a question and somebody will respond. It is live staffed, and it is staffed by folks both in the in the state of Minnesota as well as across the world. So it is available 24/7, and a surprisingly effective service and very fast. So I encourage you to pick up, chat in to Ask a Librarian if there are things you're needing help finding or doing. And then let's see, there is a learning center associated with the ELibrary, and this is for teachers or librarians or folks who are working with other people around using the ELibrary. Working with the ELM databases gives you key information on how to actually use the resources that are available. The finding topics and content types is really helpful for people who are looking at teaching primary research skills, for example, or health and wellness information or business topics and that kind of thing. So the Learning Center can be helpful. Minitex, the organization that is behind this project, is preparing to do professional development workshops for teachers and librarians on using these resources as part of remote or distance learning. So we'll keep an eye out for those sort of things coming, and I'll be in touch with Ann to make sure we can get them publicized out on the Blandin blog.
Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah.
Barbara is asking, any idea what the capacity is for parking lot use? 10, 20 cars?
It really depends location to location. Some of them have only street parking available and a few spots, 3 or 4 spots on the street. Some of them have 10 to 12 parking lot spaces. So it really is going to vary from this across the state. Your best bet is to give a call to the library and just check them out. Most of them, if they're not answering the phone directly, they are responding to voicemails. So that's certainly a way to get through. Let me know if that doesn't answer it. I wanted to just show one of these a couple of the things that are available through the eLibrary. Job and career resources are really helpful for folks who are entering into a time of unemployment. The resources here are really helpful for retooling for professions, as well as looking at different careers that are available and what sort of training is needed to be successful. The Learning Express Job and Career Accelerator has lots of information on how to write cover letters, how to write a resume. It has free test taking materials for things like the ASVAB, which is for armed services, the plumbing test, and number of different trades. So it's all available free, and has been proved to be really helpful for folks. It includes things on using computers and how to use computers, so there is some of that kind of training available through it also. For teachers who may be on the line, there is a student research section on eLibrary that designates the resources by age group. And for example, at the elementary age, there's an encyclopedia and magazine and article databases, as well as Ebooks Minnesota, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you can see it ranges up from elementary up through college. The Ebooks Minnesota is a statewide free resource that's available that has mostly Minnesota publishers in it. The focus of the content is on K-12 education, primarily K-5 or K-6, but there's really some wonderful books available there. And as opposed to other kinds of ebooks, these can be used by, any title can be used by any number of people at the same time. So excuse me, there's unlimited simultaneous use, which allows a teacher to assign the same book to this one classroom and everyone can read it together, which is a nice feature. The Minnesota Digital Library, which is the other thing I have on the screen here, is a really fun place to find pictures and historical information about Minnesota. So if you're looking for the history of labor strikes in Minnesota, or the tradition of camping or going to lodges and that, there's a lot of information available from cultural resource organizations. Many museums and local historical societies have put in content there, so it's fun just to spend some time with. Ebooks Minnesota allows you to search by category, and you can do all sorts of kinds of searching, but there's a wide range of types of titles available. There's probably, I think, about I want to say 12,000 titles available now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but given that you can use them simultaneously, it's actually quite a number that we have. The Ask a Librarian service is actually called Askmin, and this is the homepage for it. And you can see it's, they're asking you to decide if you want any topic or college research. The college research section does go to academic libraries, so that's a little more honed in on the type of research a student at a college level might need. But you can ask any kind of question available, or any kind of question and get a response. For those of you that may be looking for something to occupy some time, there is a tool out there called the Minnesota Libraries Publishing Project, which allows you to really write and self-publish a book online. It's again a free resource that's available to the state, and it's relatively easy to use as these things go. So if you're looking for something to occupy your time, I'm thinking of you, Ann Tracy. You got it. There's a book inside you somewhere, I know. You can start the self-publishing process with that. And so that's kind of a very high-level overview of some of the resources that are available to anyone in the state. Local libraries, as I said, are tending to be closed to in-person traffic, but available for email or telephone, voicemail, and that sort of thing. So please consider to use them as you're moving about, especially those involved in distance learning and looking for resources. Libraries are still here to be part of the solution. That's all I had, Ann.
All right, I'm going to add one resource. One of my favorites is MinSpin.
MinSpin, yes. And MinSpin is done by the Hennepin County Library, and it's local music. They curate a collection of local music and make it available online and downloadable. So that, I would agree with Ann, that is one of the more fun products that's out there.
And I do not have a record in me, no way, shape, or form, but I think they're looking for submissions right now.
Yes, they are.
So if there's a record in someone else, they can submit now.
Yep.
It's amazing. I'm always amazed at all the resources that are available. And of course, I want to know, are there any openings for the Askmin? That would be my dream job, would just be to answer reference questions online all day long.
Well, you know, it's a cooperative service that's actually staffed by librarians at local libraries. So you'd have to get into a local library first, and then you'd be able to join on to the crew.
It's been too long since I've sat at a reference desk, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? It's kind of just a lot for us to look at later, and as soon as someone wakes up, I have some things that she can be doing online that are more productive than what she's probably doing right now. So. Jen, thank you very much, and we'll especially if you send me the PowerPoint, I will include that separately from the video, or people can see the resources here. So again, there's a tremendous amount of resources that we've.
Okay.
We all have something to say now when the kids say, "I'm bored."
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out if you're asking a question.
Who, Ann Bradis? No, I'm just being really happy with all these resources.
Oh, great, fantastic. So next up, we've got Steve with Rams, and I see your name so many places right now because I think you're really on the front lines of getting folks the broadband they need to stay sheltered in place, to continue to learn, to continue to work, continue to do everything. So Steve, I'll leave it to you to share your knowledge.
Well, you know, RAMS as an organization simply advocates for a better life for all residents, communities, students that live in the taconite assistance area of northeastern Minnesota. And certainly these are challenging times, especially for our school districts with the task ahead of them trying to convert from on-site learning to distance learning. And knowing that we have many, many rural homeowners across the region that exemplifies or exasperates that challenge for our school districts. So there's a wide range of setups in each of those school districts. There's many of them did try and institute one-on-one devices in the school. A couple of years ago, there was some funding made available back in 2014. We started with EIP program started up, which created a funding source, and they tried to, the platform was basically to provide everybody with the same level of technology across the region and all the school districts, and then connect those school districts via telepresence, etc. And fortunately in the schools, most of them are connected through the Northeast Service Co-op middle mile fiber. So connectivity in there was not an issue. Certainly there were some upgrades and bandwidth expansions when all this happened. But in school, things weren't bad. Not every school engaged in the one-on-one devices. Chisholm, they don't have any devices for K through 5. So right now that's going to be a challenge for that district when it comes to distant learning. Other districts, some of them used carts where they have the devices stay in school. Certainly for the lower grades, that's a common practice. But like over in the Nashua-Keewatin district, the senior high 10, 11, and 12, they only had Chromebooks in carts. So not everybody had a device to take home. So now at this time, they are looking to make sure that they can find or secure a device for all of those students. So when the first order came out from the governor, closing the schools, he provided these 8 days or so for the districts to kind of get their arms around, you know, developing plans for e-learning or distance learning in some sort of capacity. One of the things most of the districts did was surveys of students and parents to find out if the school wasn't supplying a device, do they have a device at home? And then secondly, do they have connectivity? I think some of the results, I was actually surprised, you know, kind of moderately surprised, because many of the schools reported very high connectivity, but I think a lot of those cases, they're using their cell phone as being connected. And in many cases, they're not going to have the bandwidth to actually conduct extended e-learning, because downloading takes anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, and uploading, I don't even know if they could successfully upload some of their assignments, because many of these are in video content when you do some of the e-learning assignments. So there definitely are challenges out there. I reached out to the Northeast Service Co-op to see what they would be willing to do. They immediately offered to help school districts create Wi-Fi hotspots. And any building that's currently hooked up by the service co-op, all they have to do is call, and the service co-op will go out and moderate some of the devices, increase bandwidth where possible, and create hotspots in the contiguous parking lots or areas around those buildings. So that would be good in some of the rural townships and rural locations. Up in Deer River, the district itself has 15 to 20 hotspots in their district. So they are working with their providers, and I know Paul Bunyan, to enhance connectivity, perhaps help families get connected that haven't been connected, and again, just create some rural hotspots for them. Mesabi East School District, they had 4 pucks, Wi-Fi pucks, and they were going to send them out with the, they were using vans or Suburbans to deliver meals, and they were going to have the pucks in there so they could create a hotspot. So if the students came to pick up a meal, they could also take a few minutes to perhaps download or upload an assignment. And people should know that the first week of this, there really wasn't a lot of assignments assigned. But now that we've been extended, it's going to pick up this next week. That curriculum and those activities will pick up tremendously. So it's been really nice, you know, working with the Northeast Service Co-op. There haven't been a lot of requests from the school districts at this point to do anything with those hotspots. The city of Mountain Iron reached out right away, and any other connected buildings, they asked that they be enhanced. And I got a call yesterday from a Chisholm school teacher who thought it would make sense to do their 3 school districts, but we need somebody in administration to make that call for us so we can get those things done. We certainly are continuing to advocate at all levels for recognition that without adequate bandwidth and broadband in rural Minnesota, we're faced with challenges that are not common in larger metropolitan areas. And to that end, our U.S. senators, both Smith and Klobuchar, introduced some real good bipartisan legislation that would provide $2 billion in funding to small rural internet providers to, at this time, go out and make connections, create hotspots in our region or anywhere in the country, actually. And then hopefully if that legislation is passed, they would be reimbursed for those efforts and expenses. I said before we started today that CTC out of Brainerd, which is a rural cooperative internet provider, offered to come up to the range and work with the Northeast Service Co-op and create hotspots wherever they can. So that's a real nice opportunity to help alleviate some of these concerns over the next couple of weeks or months, as you know, distance learning is probably going to be the way this school year closes out. So there are a lot of challenges there, and it not only impacts the students, but you know, you heard from the governor that a lot of businesses are shut down and people should stay at home, you know, not be going into office spaces, etc., and work from home. And again, that's a challenge when you don't have the adequate bandwidth necessary to do that. Many times, depending on the business you work for, you've got to have the ability to have secured lines and, you know, security in place. And a lot of our rural locations, we don't have that type of arrangement. So that's another, you know, restriction on rural Minnesotans, that we don't have that adequate broadband bandwidth to enable us to do that. And we hear that directly from employers like Delta Airlines. They have to recruit across the country to find employees, and a lot of them can work from home if they have the right kind of a connection, but that's a challenge up here on the range. And they've just purchased space in the old Mountain Iron Buell School District because it is hooked up to the Northeast Service Co-op. So they're going to relocate employees there so they can spread them out for the next couple of months. So, I mean, I've been very impressed talking to the superintendents, getting information from them of the efforts that have been made. The IT people for the districts have been working in a collaborative effort along with the Northeast Service Co-op and other providers to do everything that they can. The Hibbing School District got out ahead of people, and they ordered 500 hotspot devices from AT&T. They started off with a conversation. The teachers expressed concerns that they may not have adequate bandwidth to work from their homes. So they were going to get hotspot devices for the teachers. And while they were discussing this, it became apparent that they were relatively inexpensive. They're 99 cents a device. Of course, you got to sign up for a service plan. It's around $50 a month. But if you stay on that for 4 months, there's a reimbursement for 50% of that cost. So the district is willing to take that on. They purchased the 500 devices. They believe they'll be delivered maybe late this week, early next week, and then they'll start getting those out there. So, you know, those types of efforts are going to make a big difference for these students in the long run. And, you know, those are, in a sense, they're temporary solutions. We've heard of outages at AT&T because of the excessive bandwidth that's being utilized during the daytime, which is, you know, normally a kind of a low usage period, peaks between 4 and 7. Now those peaks are lasting all day long. But, you know, efforts are being made. You know, if they can't deliver things over the internet, they'll make efforts to deliver them on the buses as they're delivering lunches. In many cases, it's going to be paper and pencil. You get the assignment packet, and a week later or 2 weeks later, they'll be picking up those packets as they make those runs on the school bus routes. So a lot of creativity, a lot of effort by the teachers and the administration. I think there's a lot of learning that'll be going on. Perhaps more districts will make sure they have one-on-one devices for all grade levels, so they're there in the future. But this could pay dividends because it's been explored for snow days and you know, those inclement weather situations. And so it'd really be great to have this backup system in place where everybody understands and knows how to utilize it.
Steve?
Yeah.
Bernadine has a question. Is the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition still advocating that additional dollars for the state's broadband fund should be part of Minnesota's coronavirus response?
Well, I serve on the executive board for the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition as another hat that I wear. And we were down at the Capitol on March 12th for our Broadband Day on the Hill lobby day. And we had a nice contingency of people there. And this was kind of at the, you know, very beginning of the pandemic, so to speak. Great speakers coming in, telling us that they had introduced bills for $30 million additional dollars this year. And it was targeted to be base funding, so it would be in every budget. If passed, it would have been in every budget going forward. And then at 10 o'clock that day, the governor had a press conference to talk about his supplemental budget. And because of the pandemic, all of the stuff that was happening, he cut that $30 million, which he had supported initially from his supplemental budget. So the legislature, you know, they're on hiatus. They're back today to pass some emergency funding bills. They're adjourned until April 14th at this time. That's all we know. They do believe in somehow, some shape or form, they're going to come back together and get a bonding bill passed. But it's very evident that for this session, there's not going to be any additional funding for broadband at this time. Both the task force, the governor's task force, which I serve on, and the Rural Broadband Coalition did support that additional $30 million. It's real unfortunate because in 2018, the governor's task force determined that it takes $69.7 million each biennium for Minnesota to reach its 2022 goals. And we haven't seen that kind of funding. We're far from it. Didn't get any money in 2018 for broadband. So those challenges are out there. And again, hopefully, you know, I keep telling people I hate to use this pandemic as a lever, but it may be the situation that brings broadband expansion to a head with our legislators and recognition that, yeah, we've got to commit to this if we're going to get everybody connected like they should be. You know, and we're working on the task force now. We actually have a conference call meeting tomorrow. And certainly this is going to be a topic of discussion, what this pandemic has brought to light. But it's going to take a real big lift by the federal and the state to provide adequate funding to make this happen. When you think about, we're supposed to have 25.3 in 2022 and then 100 down, 20 up in 2026. In 6 years, that's that's a wonderful goal, but I don't see it being accomplished at the rate we're going. So there may be a silver lining, and again in this pandemic, where it becomes this is a utility. It's not a luxury, and that's the message we have to carry forward. So.
And I would say another silver lining is that people have talked about that 120 goal as being aspirational. Well, you have a couple of kids trying to do remote learning, and you have a couple of parents trying to do their jobs. Suddenly 120 is
Right.
also, it's a utility. You need that to get by.
Absolutely.
If not, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the issues. We have a subcommittee that I serve on, and we're looking at the bandwidth or the broadband speed limits and goals. And my sense is, you know, 2022 goal, it's almost, you know,
Yeah.
okay, you're connected, but are you really connected? When they're talking about 5 gig and 5G and 10 gig, we hear Mediacom is looking at 10G. You know, I think we need to raise the bar. And again, we started off being a leader in the country with our broadband grant program. We may need to up our game a little bit and keep pace with technology. So, but all comes with a price tag.
It does. You know, Steve, I just have one question, kind of going back to what's happening around your area in the Iron Range. For folks in different parts of Minnesota, who should they contact to see what's happening for them, or who should they contact to start things happening?
Well,
Counterpart to you in different places, I guess is what I'm asking.
yeah, well, you know, fortunately, in a lot of these, especially in southern Minnesota, a lot of the counties are small, and they've had good support in many, many cases from their county, you know, their county boards in supporting projects. I think everybody across the state recognizes broadband expansions as part of economic development. So most counties have somebody in that capacity that's at least, you know, reaching out, looking at who's the providers in the area, is there a project? And a lot of these things are just kind of homegrown, so to speak, where a community or a group of people get together and, you know, we don't want to live like this anymore. We want some connectivity, and they start that conversation and it goes from there. And you know, fortunately, the Blandin program with the Community Broadband Grant Program in partnership with the IRRB up here on the Iron Range has created conversations across, basically from Hibbing to Ely. All of these communities are now doing feasibility studies. We're starting another one now for a large group of communities and school districts and townships. And there's some real energy in that. And what we learned from the first big project we did on the range is that you're going to find that one group, that one community that's going to listen to this, get the data, and they're going to run with it. And fortunately for us in Cherry Township, we got a federal Reconnect grant for $5.2 million with CTC, and they're going to have fiber to the home in Cherry Township in 2 years at unbelievable capacity, and the project is just phenomenal. So that sparks, you know, more growth in our region. The neighbors are already clamoring, why didn't we get it? So we know that those projects will continue to expand in some form or fashion. And that's really, it seems like what happens in other locations in rural Minnesota. I think it was, I don't want to say it might have been Swift County, but they had a grant project submitted to the state border to border, and it wasn't accepted. I believe it was about an $8 million project. And so it was denied, and the county board stepped up, and they're putting forth $6 million to complete that project, and they'll have fiber throughout that county. And again, those counties are a lot smaller than Itasca and Cooch, right, and St. Louis, but it can be done, you know, and I think it really takes all of those sources coming together and working on those projects. So, yeah, I don't know that there's one specific point. Joining the Rural Broadband Coalition is a good place to get information, to connect with people who are working on these projects. There's a myriad of people that are involved, so all different levels of knowledge and expertise. There's funding streams and providers and, you know, economic development people. So that's a good place to start if somebody's out there looking for a resource.
Great, and we'll make sure to provide more information on that in the blog post so that people can
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
click and join.
Anybody can join. It's nonprofits, municipalities, counties, corporations. We got the Mayo Clinic just joined us recently. And it was really great for them to come in because at this time with telemedicine and telehealth being a tool, you know, it's nice to have them as a
Yeah.
voice. And they were at the Capitol for our lobby day, so that was fantastic. So yeah, there's over, I think there's over 100 members to the coalition. And if you pay $500, you have voting rights. So membership is very reasonable, and yeah, check it out. We have a website, and Vince Robinson, I believe, is the president now. So
Great.
Any final questions from anyone? We're almost to 11 o'clock. Do you have any final thoughts, Dan?
Well, I was going to say I have a list. You know, you always over prepare. The former teacher and me, I have lots of resources to share. What I'll do is I will share those on the Blandin and Broadband blog, and it's really runs the gamut for how to quickly set up a Wi-Fi network if you need to resources for teachers. But they're better looked at as a bibliography, anyways. So that's good. Otherwise, I don't. Pause for 10 seconds in case anybody does have a final word or question.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you just want to speak.
No, otherwise, I'll say thank you so much for Steve, Mary, Jen, Tina, and as a silent partner for joining us all. This information is so valuable, and it is, I can't remember. Probably all three of you said at one point, but I know Mary said it's changing hour to hour. So this kind of information is valuable. If people are interested, as I said, we're kind of looking at this being the part of a series, and it's changing as much as in the education world as it is in economic development, as we've hit upon here, and it is in the healthcare. You know, you just brought up the Mayo Clinic. I know my mom just got a call saying, yeah, your follow-up is going to be online now. You know, so if people have topics they know that they want us to address, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll move forward. And Mary, you might have some final.
I do, and thank you, Anne. On Tuesday at 9 o'clock, we kick off our broadband leadership webinar series on creating successful broadband infrastructure projects. We'll be doing a series overview on Tuesday at 9, and then Broadband 101 on Thursday at 9. You can visit, oh, and I have a slide actually. Well, you can visit broadband.blandinfoundation.org for details, and just click on the webinar banner. And I have it, I just can't find my, well, you'll just have to believe me because I can't find my little slide things. Sorry about that. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. This is Ann Bradis and Grand Marais. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
Yep. Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.